Welcome back to the SportsMax Zone, and we return to cricket. West Indies are in Test action for the first time this year, and at stumps on day one of the first Test of the rebranded Wisden Trophy, now the Richards-Botham Trophy at the Sir Vivian Richards Stadium in Antigua. England, having won the toss and electing to bat, reached 268 for 6, with Johnny Bairstow top scoring with an unbeaten 109 against Jason Holder, 2 for 15. So, George, I have to say, I literally came into the office a bit later today because I was so caught up in how the West Indies men's team were bowling. I have to say, Jaden Steele, somebody I have a lot of time for, and then Kemar Roach. Yesterday you were off the show, but I was talking about the impact that he would have to make if we are to secure a win. So a good start. I will say, though, that I'm a bit disappointed that England managed to get to 268.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the pre-lunch session, the morning session, the session up to lunch.
Best.
Yeah, that was quite good. But why not take Fazeer Mohammed's take?
Yeah, the expert. Well, our cricket correspondent, the expert Fazeer Mohammed, has been following the action. Faz, what do you make of today's play?
Well, I'm so much an expert that I invariably get things wrong when it comes to predicting things about West Indies and England. But yeah, that first session would have been enjoyable from a West Indies point of view. But credit to England. This is what Test cricket is all about. And Kemar Roach pointed it out at the end of the day's play. He says the pitch is very, very good for batting. It was interesting, though, that Johnny Bairstow had a different view. He talked about one particular end where the ball seems to be playing a few more tricks. And you get the sense that England, from 48 for 4 to now be 268 for 6, 220 runs added for the loss of just 2 more wickets. They probably believe that if they could get over the 300-run mark with the specialist spinner Jack Leach in their lineup, and some younger, faster bowlers who are desperate to prove their worth in the absence of Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad, that they could make life very difficult for the West Indies later on day 2, depending on how things transpire.
Yeah, also, just to continue on the trend of talking about the bowling, Jaden Steele's a youngster getting the opportunity, 20 years of age. And I think what really stood out for me is watching Kemar Roach bowl from one end and then looking at Jaden Steele's bowl from the other end. Just taking that spot, something that we've been talking about, getting the opportunity, capitalizing on it.
Well, he's already shown what he's worth. We saw him in the first couple of Test matches against South Africa on a seamless track in St. Lucia. He was very, very effective there, even more so with a couple of Test matches that followed against Pakistan, had his first 5-wicket innings score up at Sabina Park. So quite clearly, he's a young man who impressed at the World Cup, the Under-19 World Cup of 2020, and he's gone on by leaps and bounds. He played in the Lanka Premier League towards the end of last year. So obviously, he has been identified as someone with a tremendous future in the game, not just for the West Indies, but for any franchise who might be interested in him for the long term. But when it comes to Test cricket, as he experienced in that final session, bowling with the second new ball, a few loose deliveries were put away. England got 88 runs in the mid-session and then 123 runs in the final session. And again, Roach acknowledged that the West Indies were starting to get tired. Well, this is what Test cricket is all about. They had been in Sri Lanka and really struggled to get the better of the Sri Lankans on very different surfaces. And now they find themselves, after looking really as if they would mow down England for 100, 120 maybe, now they find themselves possibly facing a total within the region of 300. So it again brings home really what Test cricket is all about.
Fazeer, it wasn't all about the bowlers, because I want to ask you to comment on the one-man counter-attack led by Johnny Bairstow. And it looked as if the West Indies were bowling Chinese language for the other Englishman, Joe Root, losing his off-bail in a very spectacular way, and the rest of the batsmen struggling. Bairstow came and suddenly the runs were flowing, and he was the one Englishman punching back and punching hard.
Punching very hard. And let's not overlook, George, because Bairstow himself pointed this out. You can't score runs by yourself unless you're playing single wicket competition or playing backyard cricket, as we used to in so many parts of the Caribbean, where you hit your runs and you run your runs. Here you need partnerships, and he got those partnerships. And maybe it was fitting that their names rhyme: Stokes, Wokes and Folks, with partnerships of 67, 99, and 54 so far. And that is very important. Take nothing away from Johnny Bairstow, because after 100 in his previous test match in Sydney, in that terrible Ashes campaign for England, he followed that up with a big 100 in the warm-up fixture last week at Coolidge, and now he's 109 not out. So he, more than anyone else, seems determined to show what English test match batsmanship is all about, and he deserves all the credit and all the praise for his innings. But as he was the first to point out, you don't score test match runs by yourself. You need someone at the other end, and credit to those three. And who knows, maybe there might be a bit more resistance to come from that England lower order.
I don't want to be overly critical, Fazeer, but the things are there to be analysed, so why not? But we had the feeling watching the game inside the zone room, that famed zone room that we speak so much about, that, you know, Bairstow on this first day pitch wasn't really making any impression. Is it an indicator of what his likely success will be in this first test, or is it really a case of just a first day wicket that he made no impression on, and the longer the game goes, we should expect to see Pramal being more dangerous for the batsmen?
By the way, I would really like to get an idea of what goes on in that zone.
A lot, Fazeer, a lot.
No, Faz, you don't want to know.
To what chaos prevails in that regard. But I think when we look at Bairstow, remember in his last test match in Sri Lanka, he picked up 8 wickets, 5 in the first innings, 3 in the second. But that was a different type of surface, and it was really poor Sri Lankan batting then. This time around, he had come on, and this always tends to be the situation. The spinner comes on when the faster bowlers have had a good run and a batting pair are well set. But as a spinner, you've got to respond to that challenge. He didn't respond particularly well. Craig Brathwaite brought himself on, wasn't particularly effective. Bairstow got his 100 off the West Indies captain. But I suspect the longer this match goes, the more the slow bowlers will be called upon to play significant roles. Jack Leach for England, and that's why it's going to be a real responsibility on Bairstow's shoulders, whether it's tomorrow to try and get some early wickets to mop up the tail, whether it's in the second innings, whether it's a deficit, whether it's a lead, whatever it is. The West Indies slow bowler, Bairstow, and indeed all the bowlers have a lot of work to do. But to answer your specific question, I wouldn't read too much into that first day, but he will know he needs to tighten up from day 2 onwards.
And the last thing, Fazeer, I'm tired, but not quite sick. I'm tired of seeing qualities in the batsmen from the other teams that I'd love to see in the West Indies team, but it is what it is. I say that to say Ben Stokes didn't really make many. It was 36, but you rightly pointed out it was 36 in a crucial partnership at that time. But the number of times that Jason Holder especially got him to play and miss. So Jason Holder would bowl it, Stokes would drive, find the fielder, then Jason would put it a half a yard fuller, he'd drive and miss, and you thought it was only a matter of time because his wicket would fall. As would be the case for the West Indies. You see the bowler working them out and then voila, they're out. But Stokes stuck in, and I make that point, Fazeer, to say this is the kind of resilience that you expect to see in quality cricketers at test level. You're going to play and miss a few, but you're going to keep your head down and you're going to treat the new ball, the next ball, like it's your first delivery and play it on merit rather than sitting there like a sitting duck waiting to be knocked over by the bowler.
Absolutely, George. And I think the West Indies also will be looking at their slip catching because they weren't as sharp as they should have been. Fortunately, Blackwood's early drop wasn't costly. But again, your point about batting and putting what went on behind you and focusing on the next delivery. That is the real challenge of test match batting. That ability to concentrate on the delivery that is coming up and not be preoccupied with what went on before. It is the essence of when you talk and you hear about the great test match batsmen over the many decades. That is what they tell you. It's not being preoccupied with what has happened, learning from it, but looking forward and taking on every delivery on its merit. And that's what England have done so far with their lower to middle order. And that's what the West Indies will need to do when they start their reply.
Yeah, fans, definitely looking forward to, how we go about day 2 and chatting with you as we analyze that. Thanks so much.
Take care.
Fazeer Mohammed, they are international cricket commentator. We take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we have so much more for you.